Good night, guys. Welcome to another video from Dumbledore's Army. Tonight we'll be talking about, you guessed it, political communication. We're going to try and really entertain you through this video and really enlighten you to make sure you have a really good understanding of what political communication is. So sit tight, buckle up, and we're moving on to our next slide. First of all, I'd like to talk about what is political communication. So after all the research I've done, looked around on the net, talked to some people, we've come to figure out to this conclusion that political communication is communication and political science kind of meshed together to create this new subgroup under both of them. And what it does is it helps to spread information that talk about the influence of politics on the public and also how politicians or the government use media in today's day and age to reach out to the public, and also how the public use, again, media, social media, uh, newspapers, any type of information tool to reach out to one another and the politicians and people in their community to basically talk about politics. So why is that even important? I ask myself that question on a daily basis. Why something like political communication? Why is that even something we should talk about? In fact, it is really important that we do talk about politics because politics affects us on an individual basis and also in the community. It is important to hold discussions about politics and how it governs our society, and it is also important to distinguish between effective and ineffective communication when talking about politics. And so some of these things that political communication help to foster, it helps to foster a discussion firstly about authority. What specifically about authority? Well, you see, the public and the people who put the politicians in power, we give them a authority. We give them authority to create laws, to try us in the courtrooms. We help to select judges, senators, and all these things. And if we don't discuss this in our everyday lives or with the people around us who go to the polls and vote year in, year out, then it's like we're blindly giving our authority to someone that we know nothing about. We don't know what their values are. We don't know what their decision-making skills are. We have no idea what their motive is for governing a country. So it's very important that we discuss this and have this communication with our fellow people and also keep in contact with the politicians through the media. Another thing is that it's important because these same politicians are the people who are in charge of allocating our resources, the people's resources, uh, the community's resources. It's so important that we know exactly where our taxpayers' dollars are going. I would like to know where my tax money is going. I work hard year in, year out, paying taxes to the IRS, who then use all these monies for different projects. And it's important that when the politicians have these debates and they're posed with difficult questions, that they are able to communicate effectively to what their plan is for these different resources. Another thing is their decision making. We give them the authority, we're giving them the power to make decisions on behalf of the whole country. And so it's very important that we discuss and communicate amongst ourselves, keep in contact with, again, the politicians through various social media outlets, to different information technology and anything that's out there for us to get our information. And you want to make sure that you get real good, reliable sources when you're looking for these informations and things to discuss about. And we're gonna dig a little bit deeper as the video goes on, as the series goes on, you'll hear my group members talk about, the importance of effective and ineffective communication and the various channels of this communication. And so, lastly, just overall, it's socially important because these politicians, these people we're putting in power, they are the ones who have, like I said, the power and the authority to basically define who we are as citizens, what our country looks like, the rules we're governed by, the rules and policies and consequences that one might face throughout their daily lives. So it is very important that we discuss and communicate these things on a daily basis. And so, lastly, before I hand it over to a couple of my other colleagues in Dumbledore's army, basic overview of what we're going to dive into in this lecture, this speech, this presentation for you guys today. We have a lot to talk about. We're going to be talking about politician-to-politician communication, person-to-person communication, youth-to-politician communication, politician-to-public communication, and lastly, public-to-politician communication. So we have a whole lot of information. Just prepare yourselves. It's going to be fun. We got some informative videos for you guys, and I hope you guys enjoy these next few minutes. Thank you very much. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh. Hey, welcome back, guys. Next up, we have a very sophisticated young man about to talk to us about politician-to-politician communication. I hope you guys enjoy him. It's going to be rich. Stay tuned.
Hi guys, Patrick here, and I'm going to be talking to you about politician-to-politician communication. Next slide, please. So communication between politicians is a worldwide deal. It has many different platforms, which I'll be talking to you about, and two kind of categories it can be broken down to is effective and ineffective. Next slide, please. So here are two examples of politician-to-politician communication. First, we will see the best, and then the worst.
I recall yet that President Kennedy had to go for days on end with very little sleep during the Cuba Missile Crisis. Is there any doubt in your mind that you would be able to function in such circumstances?
Not at all, Mr. Truitt, and I want you to know that also I will not make age an issue of this campaign. I am not going to exploit for political purposes my opponent's youth and inexperience.
So that's the only part of the plan? Just the lines, the interstate competition?
The nice part about the plan, you'll have many different plans. You'll have competition. You'll have so many different plans.
But now he's repeating himself.
No, I'm not repeating. No.
Mr. Trump respond to what
Yeah,
you
he's
just
gonna give us
posted.
the plan now, right?
If you could talk a little bit more about your plan. I know you talked about
No,
the
we're going to have
interstate.
many different plans
Can you
because
give
there's going
us
to be
specifics?
competition.
So in the first clip, you can see how President Reagan really captures the audience and shows that, given a tough question, that he will not let his age be a negative contributor to his campaign, that he will rise up against the differences. And then in the second video, you can see President Trump sort of deflecting questions and repeating himself a lot of times so that he kind of avoids the question, and that showing that he's unprepared for the question, doesn't really have a plan going forward. So that would be a big, ineffective way contributing to his image in his campaign. Politicians that practice many ineffective ways can be seen as desperate sometimes, that will result in forms of deceit, false information. They'll outwardly attack other politicians, and they'll try to avoid questions like we saw in the video. and showing that they're ill prepared and that they're not really ready for a debate or a conversation about intense topics that pertain to our country. But there are many politicians that use their platform to result in change. They practice compromise. They make sure laws, kind of umbrella out to every, American, every part of the world really, to try to just make the world a better place through their platform. They, have to just practice respect for cultures, religions, different types of government and people. And through all this, they practice effective communication and can make these things possible. Body language is also another big contributor in not only the way other politicians see people, but how the public can see them as well. Politicians can be seen as weak from, wandering eyes, sweating, actually, having a little shaky voice, constantly moving. Like, these are all harmful tendencies that could damage one's reputation and image. Next slide. And then the ones that practice positive body language, they have the good straight up posture, they make eye contact, they're always smiling, a strong handshake. They make sure they answer, the questions with thorough plans and thought out ideas that really make it simple to understand. These are all the helpful tendencies that can only help a politician. And then the final topic I'll be talking about is social media and political correctness. These are two very big movements today in our society. Politicians use social media to connect and spread awareness with pretty much everyone worldwide. They can also connect with other politicians, getting ideas, getting support for their ideas, their campaigns. And also, political correctness is just a huge, huge thing in today's world. It can either damage or help your influence, your reputation, and it can also affect the people that you lead, and also people that, just are everyday people, and they see your ideas and your viewpoints, and can really just inflict change for that person and their image and what they can do for our world.
Welcome back, guys. That was a great presentation from Patrick. Ooh, hairs in my face. Yeah. Next up, we have a very well-spoken young lady. She's ready to wow us with her Shazam and stuff. Her name's Tori, and I hope you enjoy her presentation. You're going to talk to us about person-to-person political communication. It's going to be rich.
Hi, I'm Tori, and I'm going to be talking about person-to-person political communication. I think that person-to-person is important because America is about the people making decisions, so it's important for us to know how to have effective discussions about politics. So how do we communicate with each other? Through social media and through Twitter, and it's kind of hard to communicate through Twitter because you only have a certain amount of characters, and also you are behind a screen, so it's hard to understand people's experiences and why they have the opinions that they have. And another way that we communicate is through face-to-face, and usually whenever we're talking face-to-face politically, it's usually with family or with coworkers, so it's with people that we tend to know. And whenever I think about talking politics with people, I tend to think of heated arguments and just people getting angry. So, what are we doing wrong? So, whenever we're talking politics with people, it's really important to understand that opinions are opinions, and there's no right or wrong. So you can't tell somebody that they're wrong for having an opinion that's different than you. And also, whenever we try to persuade another person of your opinion, people tend to use the reasons that are their own reasons for having that opinion rather than using another person's morals to kind of persuade them and shift them over to your view. So this is a list of the morals that liberals tend to have and the morals that conservatives tend to have. So liberals tend to prioritize care, protection, and equality, while conservatives tend to prioritize respect for authority, patriotism, and purity. So usually whenever a conservative is trying to persuade a liberal, they will use their own morals rather than using the liberals' morals, which is not going to really work as effectively because they don't prioritize these things. So how can we improve? So going back to the table from before, knowing that you can use another person's morals in order to persuade them and sway them into your opinion. So, for example, if a liberal were to try to convince a conservative of something, they would use morals like patriotism and respect for authority rather than their own morals like equality and care. So another way that we can improve our political discussions with other people is by respecting each other. And it's important because if you're trying to shame somebody from their opinion, then they're not going to want to further the discussion and it's just going to get heated. And also, the last thing to improve your political discussion is by listening to each other. A lot of times whenever people are talking politics, they just listen to respond to the other person rather than to understand where they're coming from and their experiences and their backgrounds and why they have the opinions that they do.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that. That was really informative, and we ask you that you stay tuned with us. We only have a few more things to talk about. I'd like to point out though that, as you all have noticed, thanks to our next speaker, we're all wearing these great cardigans tonight. We're looking so fly, and I hope you guys enjoy this next segment of our speech. He's going to talk about youth in politics, and it's going to be rich. Stay tuned.
Hey, I'm Grant. I'm with Dumbledore's Army, and today I'm going to be discussing youth and politics. I'm going to try to keep my speech much like fashion today, long enough to cover the important starts, but short enough to keep you interested. Today, we have a large youth population that is becoming more and more skeptical of today's politicians. Therefore, it is becoming ever more important for politicians today to expand their reach and branch out to the youth of today. And you can see here I have Kid President. If you've ever seen his YouTube videos, he gives pretty inspirational talks, and this little voter ballot guy is talking about like kind of representing there's low youth voter turnout in the last few decades because many of today's youth have been turned off of politics completely because of what politicians have done in the past and what they continue to do to this day. Speaking of these few decades, we start with Generation X over to the far right, or to your left. Generation X is the kids who were born to the parents of the Vietnam War hippies, the 60s generation. The kids in this generation would have grown up in the late 70s and early 80s. They were exposed to television. Their parents' views often would guide them to become more skeptical of political figures. This was not helped at all by Watergate scandal that happened during these kids' lives. We even go to Generation Y up top, you really can't see that well. Generation Y is the kids of these kids. They grew up watching TV every day. They saw ads, they became more skeptical. They could see through kind of BS of what the media was trying to sell them, what politicians would later sell them. They even were able to adapt the internet at some point. So they were a little more tech savvy than everybody else. And the politicians of that day weren't able to keep up with them as well. Then we have our generation, Generation Z. We have grown up with the internet. We are very tech savvy. We know what we're doing online. Therefore, our form of communication, our channel of communication, our interactions every day are different than our predecessors from Y and X and even way back to the boomers. We get most of our information always from the internet. There's news sites, YouTube. There's plenty of places you can go get information online. Not always the best information. There's a lot of bias online, but what can you do? We're young. So that leaves politicians in a very weird situation. They need to reach out to us. They need to come to us, in a sense. They have to, reach out to our form of media. I have a few examples, as you will see here on a YouTube video. If we can get play. This is Hillary Clinton, her first Snapchat.
I'm just chilling in Cedar Rapids.
How horrible was that? Most kids today kind of see through the BS what they're trying to do. It's obviously forced. It's obviously fake. Hillary Clinton is not comfortable in that situation, and we can see that. We don't like it. It's too false. It's not genuine. It's what we usually Generation Z and all the newer generations X and Y we all crave a genuine politician. And here's a few words. Here on top, you see they're not really. You can't really see this. Is the top says, "Can I get the youth vote by cutting taxes, or by raising minimum wage?" That's not how you do it. Of course, those help as long as you're genuine about it. But most politicians today aren't. And there's Bernie Sanders' Snapchat if you want it. Hit him up. Yep. So maybe you would ask, why is it important to expand to the youth? Well, obviously, they're the future. They're future leaders. They're going to take this country in a new direction. So therefore, we have to expand to them early, get them informed, just inform them. Therefore, we can increase the voter turnout. We can just develop a better generation of Americans to further the progress of this country. And I hope you enjoy my speech, and if not, I hope you enjoyed your nap.
Hello? Alright, cool. Be down in a minute. Pull up through the circle drive. Yeah. Alright, cool. Oop. Pizza's here. Be right back, guys. Rich. Hey, guys. Just got some pizza. It smells really good. Next up, we have our lovely tech-savvy assistant that's been working her magic on the camera all night. Not the magic you're thinking about. But she's going to talk about politician and public's communication. Enjoy.
Hi guys, I'm Jessica and I'm here with Dumbledore's Army, and I'm going to continue this conversation of boring politics on why politicians and their communication with the public is so important. It's not going to be entertaining, and it's okay if you take a nap during my speech, because I honestly want a nap too. So how, what, and why is communication with politicians important? Well, if you don't know who your politicians are that you're voting for, how can you make an educated guess when voting? I mean, honestly, at that point, it's already a guess, so just go with whoever. With Generation X and Generation Y now becoming of age to vote, it's a critical time in that we know who our politicians are, especially with how social media plays a giant factor in the ways politicians have communicated with the public. As you can see, Twitter, Facebook, and Snapchat, which weren't originally part of politicians' platforms of communication, has now taken a turn with the 2000s of the internet becoming a big sensation. That put politicians in kind of a pickle because most politicians are old and most old people don't know how to work technology. Just gonna lay that out there because my grandma calls me all the time and asks for help on her internet. I can't help her. With politicians now having to make their presence known on other social media sites, that's how they reach their newer aged audience. You still have telethons where you've got a bunch of old people calling people, trying to get them to get votes. You still have the mail because politicians get to send mail for free and not have to pay for postage. So, like, why not use it? I mean, I just throw it in the trash, but I mean, at least I know who they are when they're sending me things. And of course, you have the campaign trail. That's where the politicians go on cool tours of the country and spend lots of money to make people come to rallies and talk about important things and let the public ask questions. It's kind of important because I have questions for them about how they're going to fix healthcare issues and taxation, and are we going to get free college ever? I don't know. I'm kind of like $5 billion in debt right now, so that'd be nice. Politicians need to grow their presence on new platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, and Snapchat because we're not voting. People our age they don't care about politics. We need to get them engaged, and the one way to get them engaged is to hunt them down on a platform that they are active on. No one watches the news now. Not anyone my age, at least. I don't know anyone that turns on CNN for fun. It's kind of on when I'm walking through McDonald's. So I don't see political debates happening unless I'm honestly on Twitter and I'm like, oh, what's this hashtag? What's going on? And then it's streaming live on Periscope. That's how you get involved.
Oh, hi guys. I hope you guys enjoyed that segment there. Jessica was fantastic. Yes. And lastly, but definitely not least, we have our final speaker, Eden. She's going to talk to us about people to politician communication. And just a little inside note, does have some insider information that she got help with that she's going to share with us today. And let me tell you, yep, you guessed it, it's going to be rich. Stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Eden. I'm going to be talking about the people to politician communication. So political communication, specifically to America, the people to politician communication that happens is a key part of democracy. There are several channels that constituents, or otherwise known as people politicians have been elected to represent, can communicate with their representatives. These include phone calls, emails, letters, social medias, and town halls. Throughout all of these channels, they definitely work better on a local level and then get more difficult as you make your way up. But you can still even call, email, or send letters to the President of the United States. But the problem with all these channels is that they're normally answered by the staffer instead of the representative you are trying to communicate with. The first channel I will be discussing is phone calls. These are most direct, especially at a local level, because whoever's answering it answers it right away and then they write it down. The nice thing is that if they write it down and it gets written down enough, then it might be brought to the attention by the representative. And the second one is email. And this is definitely the most easy way to contact your representative, but it is also seen as very impersonal, and it also may take days, weeks, or even months for someone to write you back because it could just be left in their email folder because it's not imperative to get to. Another channel of communication are letters. And these can be seen as personal, but they are also difficult to read sometimes because of messy handwriting, and insecurity may become an issue depending on what level you are at. If you send a letter to the president, it's going to take a very long time for it to get to him because he has so many levels of security before it actually gets to him or his staffers. Letters are normally sent from representatives to their constituents because politicians have framing privileges, which allows them to send out letters without having to pay for postage, and constituents always have to pay for postage. Another form is social media, such as things like Facebook or Twitter. It's definitely the newest form of communication, but it's not the best because things may not be even seen or even responded to. But something Facebook's doing to try to make communication between the people and their politicians better is something they call town hall. This allows you to enter your street address where you vote, and then it pulls up all the representatives that represent you. And then you can contact them or follow them if they have it set up. But if you post something about your representative, it doesn't necessarily alert them, but it shows your Facebook friends who you're talking about, and it'll pull up their Facebook page. Another thing they do is put a little town hall icon next to your name if you comment on a representative's Facebook post. So they can see if the person commenting is a constituent, which also means that they are a voter for them and they might focus on your comment more. Town halls on Facebook literally come from town halls now and later. This is a form of face-to-face communication that allows members of the public to ask their representatives questions. It is the oldest form of political communication between people and the public. The first recorded in the U.S. was in 1633 when a group of locals got together to talk about their local government. But what most people will probably be familiar with is a town hall form of presidential debate. The first one was in 1992, and it allows people like Ken Bone to ask questions to their representatives. The problem with this, though, is that not everyone in the population gets to ask a question, only a certain group of people. But on a local level, anybody can go to the town halls and ask questions or deal with important issues. And it's not always a town hall, it's community centers or schools. So all of these channels are supposed to make it easier for us to communicate with our politicians. And it's a nice thing in America does because not every government does it, and it definitely makes it more of a democracy.
Guys, I hope you enjoyed Eden's segment over here on people to politician communication and all the insightful information that she has gave us a glimpse of. I hope you enjoyed this 30-minute talk on why political communication is so important while we sit back here and enjoy some bomb pizza. Enjoy your guys' night and stay tuned to Dumbledore's Army and our upcoming political talk segment number 2 later this week.